everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Lifting. Today's episode is being recorded on 4/4/25. Today is another Q&A episode. But before we get started with any of that, I now open this circle to true benevolence with no conflicting agendas as of this moment in time. So, Joanna?
We are all one, and when one is harmed, all are harmed. When one is helped, all are helped. Therefore, in the name of who I am, and I am one with all there is, that only the highest good be done. We pray for you, your friends, your family, your loved ones, to let healing energies in. Let them love you, let them nourish you, and let them bring you to your highest good. We ask for benevolence now to come in with no conflicting agenda, to be a part of and to support this conversation that we're going to have today. We ask for malevolent or mischievous beings to be scooted out right now, swept away, in order for this conversation to be had in peace. And with that, and with great blessings that we always send your way, we say, so be it.
And so be it. And we also have an affirmation and blessing at the beginning here. This one, as we did in the old days, you might be seeing that we're mimicking what we used to do in 2017 and 18. Yeah, we're going back into that, folks. So some of those in those days were channeled ones, and this is one that shocked me when I got up and felt his presence around. And I'll say the name after I'm done reading the blessing. So, the affirmation blessing is, to the fight, I say win it. To life, I say live it. To death, I say accept it. Life and death are irrevocably one. For all live forever with hands held to the sky. And that was a channel from actor and athlete Carl Weathers. So that was today. That was this morning at around 12:30 this afternoon, actually. So now we will go into the questions.
Okay, so question number one. Why do different psychics all have different, sometimes vastly different information on Adolf Hitler's death and or escape to Argentina?
Yes, this is actually very interesting because there's been some declassified information about how somebody can prove that he went to Argentina. This is more of a duh moment, but this part of the question, this part of this is actually fairly interesting. And I knew some of this, but because this happens in a lot of cold cases and things like that, and Houdini went into this. So Isaac here, everyone, to say that, as Houdini said in his channel, what is known as glamour magic is quite prevalent right now, as is V2K and timeline jumping repositioning. This goes to show you that if you read the timelines, you will ultimately see multiple variations on a theme, as well as can be tricked in multiple ways. Excuse me. Look back for resolve, look forward for confidence, and most importantly, look to the now for your strength. Or as Elena once said, 25% inner work, 25% outer world effects, and 50% the end result, or resolution is what he's meaning. Next question, Isaac. Okay.
Is the character of Mike Wachowski from Monsters, Inc. and from Monsters University based on an actual being and or race?
This was actually a very interesting one. I found that one a very interesting question. So Elena here, everyone. Yes, Mike Wachowski is indeed based upon an actual species out in the galaxy. The movies were essentially a schooling based upon not only the Lushing process, but based upon the fact that a lot of times closets are used as portals for a multitude of different beings, such as insectoids, reptilians, puckwudgies, brownies, goblins, boggarts, and the like. Good beings can and have used them as well, such as us, for instance. We can not only show up ourselves, but also put a very small implant within a closet, crawl space, or overall home/property to make sure we can project within a home safely, just in case the individuals do harm us if they become violent. Women seem to be more well received this way. contemplative emojis like this, and wink emoji. Gee, I wonder why. Next question. Now, she didn't go into how that species was, but the whole point was the whole point of the question was it actually based on a real species, and that was answered. And I've seen these little Cyclops subtypes before, so a couple of these questions are going into the Monsters Inc. theme actually. So there's the next one.
Is the Monsters Inc. / University character James Sullivan or Sully based upon the Forest People or something else entirely?
And this was the Forest People, Broston, that actually answered this one. No, Chris, he is not based upon us, but in fact is based upon a very large and colorful elemental race, horns and all. They occupy mostly mountainous areas of stone and ice and can shift their coloring accordingly as part of their natural camouflage abilities. Next question. Now, I will comment on this. I always wondered, why the Sasquatch didn't like colorful, like resin dyes and glitters and stuff and glow powders and stuff like that put in their pieces, or I probably would have done it by now. And for one, glow powder is made of strontium. They can't communicate through a piece that has strontium in it. That's one of the components in chemtrails that's toxic to them. And two, that's the colorful ones are not them. They just basically pointed this out in this. So James Sullivan or Sully is based off of one of those ones. They basically said, oh, that's somebody else. Have the fairies and dragons have the colors because dragons can shift their colors around too. And they said that also is someone else with horns and with colors. So this is who they are referring to. So that's interesting.
Where do the Mike Wachowski people live?
All right, that's back to the little green cyclopses. So they live on a space station primarily, and they are servants to those that run it. That can be anyone who wishes to use leisurely resort like stations or ships. Think cruise ships, think The Fifth Element with the leisure vessel sequence. We all remember that movie. They are free to come and go as they choose, but they seldomly do. They just live to serve, their motto, in fact. Next question, and this was not labeled as to who said it. I believe this was Elena, like the previous one. For whatever reason, I just apparently did not put the name, but I know that was actually her. So, okay.
Who generates money curses as well as video curses on platforms such as YouTube, Rumble, and the like?
All right. To a lesser extent, Rumble. I have yet to see a lot of them on Rumble, by the way. Isaac here, everyone. This will only take a second to answer. He says this, but he has written a manifesto on here. Money curses attached to your credit/debit cards, wallets, and even your bank accounts, even if you have a private bank vault or box. Now, who makes them and why? Dark wizards, warlocks, and witches? No. The answer will surprise and shock all of you. Your very own abilities used to self-farm a very ancient spell of poverty and servitude to the state, or whatever cause you wish to attribute to it. It started a little before the "giveth unto Caesar" speech supposedly said by Jesus. The Romans, Enlil, along with his remains curse, decided to create poverty with a single word spell, and that word was unworthy, as he supposedly stated before he supposedly flooded the earth due to the fact that humanity made too much noise. He stated that they were unworthy. You all know. You all now bear the unworthy curse. Stop it. Deny the known. Manifest differently. As for video curses, both the money curses and video curses look like tripwire cobwebs. He's also the king of quotes, by the way. Though those exist, they too are self-farmed due to the fact that humanity always felt that it was beneath greatness when it came to money, and in this case, views. Though a frequency tripwire is a tripwired to trigger a money curse, same with video views due to triggered content from dumb AI sources and watchdogs. The manifestation always and forever shall be yours to rule. No, karma dumping does indeed happen too, but is dimensionally being amplified by not only your tech, but by witches, warlocks, and wizards. Next question. I will actually backtrack a little bit into this. It's just like you saw in Thor: Love and Thunder, where Thor basically wanted the hammer to protect Jane, and then all of a sudden a symbol appeared on the hammer, words, and you hear the narrator basically talk about words or spells, essentially. Also, I do want to point out they said the remains curse. The remains curse it's known as the curse of Enlil. And this is the reason some people are afraid to cremate bodies. Which is essentially what you should do. Enlil wanted no cremation because it would break the spell or curse. What this is he cursed the remains, the buried remains, being buried in a coffin. Those bones carry a water signature with them, a very minute set of water molecules with them, and energetic molecular structure. That takes centuries to dissipate, and if hardly at all. And these remains tend to make it so a ghost is at times bound to those remains. You've heard us talk about the soul trade. This makes it so those there's like a tether to those ghosts, and then why ghosts gravitate around graveyards. Another thing is aliens and/or angels are keeping them there. Like what I said in Forest Home Cemetery, where I saw the ghosts lined up against the gravestones, and they kept saying that they said an angel told them to remain there. And no amount of talking to them got them to change their mind. I eventually had to make them leave. You've heard me talk about the soul trade. I'm not going to go full bore into that. There is an episode we've done already on this. I'll put the link in the descriptor, but I don't want to reinvent the wheel. Just know that we went to my father, Dave Pappas of Sage, and I went to a cemetery called Bachelor's Grove. And there were already two people there when we got there. There was this guy who was the very, very haphazardly lookout. He was like this, going, I don't know what I'm doing here. Kind of like one of those types that he's not being very ninja-like in his camouflage there, nor is he's being very suspicious. Another one was this gothed out girl that was there that was carrying around also, the dowsing rods. That was not the suspicious part, because I've done things like this. What she was doing is her energy was red as hell. No pun intended. She was riding around a jinn with her, which they've also been in servitude to beings like Solomon, and also like Enlil, and people throughout history. The Japanese also caged jinn the whole bit, and Solomon is temple, same bit. Anybody can control or think they can control a jinn, but it really controls them. She was in the cemetery, and she was messing with the remains that were in the ground. And I saw her trying to do something with the energy, and I put it back and audited it and stopped her from doing it. And these two were pissed that I was there, and they eventually took off. And we did our ghost box sessions and the like that's there. What the whole point of me saying this is that energy that was on the remains, that is literally from the time Enlil cursed the bones and cursed the remains. It doesn't seem to be happening to literally everyone, but it happens at times. I'm thinking the curses and the spells are wearing off because that energy from that period is fading. If you want to see more episodes on things like the Curse of Enlil and want us to go further into those type of subjects, let us know. So I will go on to the next question.
Are the nine, as channeled by Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry in the book Earth, Planet of Choice, good or evil?
To my knowledge, they're evil. They not only twisted the fabric of human DNA, but twisted our societal evolution itself. If you wish to know more about this group, consult the episode of GIC, Gods and Titans #7, Star Trek's Legacy, with Gene Roddenberry, where I channeled Gene Roddenberry, and GIC, Gods and Titans #10, Revoking the Fairy Tale and the True Alchemies of Isis. It would take too long to go into this subject, but if you go to gic.show and subscribe to that site, you will see the Gods and Titans number 10. You go to the Galactic Interversal Consortium's Rumble account, you will see Star Trek's Legacy one, and also on my YouTube at Christopher S. Jacobs. So, next question.
What are the true analogs presented with the 8 and the 9 in Skyrim?
Oh, the analogies. That's I know it looks like analogs, but
Oh,
analogies.
sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. What are the true analogies presented with the 8 and the 9 in Skyrim? Yeah, this is another 9 one. So this I went and I knew the source material on this one. So for one, the argument that Pluto is not. Excuse me, I will repeat this. For one, the argument that Pluto is not or is a planet. That's what I believe was also being presented. The 9th planet, to be exact. The other is Talos worship. The fact that the elves feel that Talos is an aspect of their trickster god Lorcan. He would be Loki to us and not the god of the Nords. Now, some people also believe that Odin is a trickster god too, citing the fact that he and his family go by multiple names. Enlil is the true trickster god in all of this, the god of Abraham. The god of Abraham, excuse me. I personally don't buy the Odin being the trickster narrative, but his daughter, the one we refer to as the witch, sure is. Also known as Isis, and by a number of different names. One of which is Ninlil, wife of Enlil. Enlil also being known as Osiris, even though those were two family incestuous fragments becoming the foundation of the known 13 Cabal families. History only sees two, like an Adam and Eve of the Cabal. The game comparison to Odin in two places. One, Atmora equals Atlantis and Asgard, and subsequently the survivors coming to Earth and or teaching the less evolved races of men. Tiber Septim / Talos creating the nine territories of the Empire equals Odin creating the 9 realms. For more on this subject, just go to the Liftings Video Game Rumble account and look for the show Ryan and I did on a look at the Elder Scrolls races, men. Also, the others changed their names so much because not only the need in history to do so, but for vibratory purposes as well. Some people believe it is so that they can obtain the most worshippers within the most religions, but that championship belt and or trophy still goes to Enlil for creating world religions themselves. So even Enki's preferred name is Poseidon, his original Oversoul's sound frequency value. And go to gic.show. We've spoken about some of these things with Poseidon and Odin and various others. So,
do planets and animals help block psionic attacks?
This is actually an excellent one. So the answer is yes. My answer is yes to that. But this is also Vesa that answered this as well. Vesa here to answer this question. Yes, they definitely can. The more colorful plants, the better. From roses to petunias to multiple others. If they die suddenly, this means they died protecting you from harm. Animals can do the same. They often come in to protect their owners from harm, both physically as well as energetically. They can literally take the bullet as far as diseases go, as well as from external attacks. Taking that energy with them to what you refer to as spirit and or the afterlife, when in fact the term the afterlife is an oxymoron because of the fact that life is everlasting and that there is no such thing as after or before when it comes to spirit. Your spirit world self or oversoul is always there in spirit forever and ever. So that was Vesa. Next question, she says.
What is the daredevil effect?
This is a term I created, and I will describe this as best as I can. Isaac was very butthurt when I was going to go too far into a particular subject that I attributed this to. So I told him that I would not mention it too much, but you will know what I'm saying here. What is a daredevil effect? It is an effect by which a person, persons, and or organizations commits acts of greed, violence, and or stupidity to the point that it harms a large group of people. The subsequent energy builds up, ends up needing a rebalancing. Hence, Matt Murdock's Daredevil, or to a greater extreme, Nick Castle, aka the Punisher. The best example of which is Darth Vader, by which the prophecy never stated the balancer of the Force had to be good. He takes out both sides of the Force, both extremes, good slash Jedi and evil slash Sith. This audits and resets the energies back to nature's baseline. Whereas people cannot and will not circle the toilet forever and ever until the end of time itself. It simply is not allowed. This effect applies to greedy and heartless corporations as well as individual criminals. Alternate word, karma, but not as harsh. Hand of God sort of way. Just rebalancing of energies, cause and effect. Alternate name, the Darth Vader effect. So, you guys can use your imagination as to what actual case I am referring to. So, here is the next one.
It says, I did forget to ask Orlog, and I wanted to ask you really quick. In the Garfield show, ETs with the biological structure of food come to Earth, and they see Garfield tries to eat them, and they take off running. But I remember a pizza slice ET was eaten by him and fell into Garfield's belly, but didn't die because it had a body that was able to tolerate being bitten and chewed and crushed. So it had a good life tolerance. Are there such entities, and could we possibly be eating them without knowing? I was having a hard time finding the words to explain it, which is why I kept having some of the mind blocks.
The movie Sausage Party comes to mind with this, folks, as well. That is actually, believe it or not, is a disclosure movie. You even see it's more of a Lushing message that where people were thinking the gods made up certain beliefs and stuff like that throughout the whole thing. You even see the people in the freezers at the end. That's like the aliens found in Antarctica. That's not as much of a stretch as you think. And even one of the characters in it when the people eating them thing came up, one of them went, no, I don't want to believe that, meaning cognitive dissonance, how people react, the whole bit, it's all there. So that comes to mind when you think of food coming alive. But this came from a new Sasquatch that we've encountered by the name of Orlog. The one that sent in the questions, he doesn't mind if his name is out there because he filmed an episode of The World of Sasquatch with me, which you will also eventually see. His name's Eddie Soto. So he wants me to say that. So Orlog here, Eddie. Yes, there are life forms out there that can be eaten, live, and be pooped out, much to the chagrin of life forms. Ha! But it has happened before, and most likely will happen again. He didn't go as to who they were, because then that's going to open up a can of worms. It's just like you see in the Sausage Party movie where the guy gets high, sees the food talking to him and everything. He's on that energetic wavelength. That has to do with energetic wavelengths, the point they were making. And he's like, I'll never eat food or drink water again. People would be creeped out if they probably knew certain things. That's probably why he didn't go into it. All right, here is the next question. There's a little group here.
Okay. What are the origins of the Asgardians? Did they evolve much like the Titans? Do they bear children or reform from spirit? Did they have any ages of hunting, gathering, stone tools, industrial revolution? Was there a leader before Odin?
And it was actually, I think it was Odin himself that answered this one. Which is kind of what you would expect. Him or Chrome would have answered this one, as they represent the Titans and the Asgardians. So Odin here, young man, to answer this question. We evolved from spirit to physical. At first, then began to be able to bear children. Some of us were on the Creator Council before us and were able to design our very own next incarnated forms. Bron of the Creator Council, or in your Star Trek terminology, progenitor race. The Titans, like Chrome, evolved the very same way, but on Earth, spirit spirit to goo to bone and blood, and finally to giant physical tree huggers. Haha. I say that I say this as Crumb flips me the bird. Haha. We had ages of hunting in the past, and we still do to this very day. We hunt the larger animals of the deep as well as the larger of the sky. Dragons included, dragons excluded, of course. We did not remain just hunter-gatherers for very long. Our energies demanded we be as we were much, much quicker than humans, meaning from coming in with more knowledge is what he actually is referring to. When we've forgotten some things from entering this form is what he's trying to say, because they came in at a slightly higher vibratory frequency. Nary a snap of the fingers, and we had technology, rockets, bombs, and even death and destruction. We earned our place in the sunlight, and this is the feeling that led to the conquering, the creation of the Nine Realms and the Bifrost. There was and is only one leader of Asgard, me. My brothers and I never agreed on how to rule, the methods by which to rule, and how to maintain that rule. Odin. So, I will keep going.
Can there be parallel versions of gods too? Like, for example, parallel versions of Zeus or Hades?
That's a very, very excellent question. So, glad these are coming in, folks. Yes, there can be. Orlog here, Eddie, to tell you that the Orion universe itself had a set of Odin, Thor, and other god duplicates, grayish-like in nature. Humanity and Asgard essentially were made into one, essentially like Stargate SG-1 with the Greys as the Asgardians. I always cringe every time I see that, folks. This is all that I can say on this subject for now, anyhow, until Chris here learns more and comprehends more about this subject matter. Next question. You see, when they say this, they're basically telling me I don't have all the facts yet. I think I have the complete picture, and I don't. They're telling me based on what I happen to possess in my knowledge at that moment in time. And they do this for a lot of people when they also take the forms. Sometimes the good guys take the forms of angels, knowing that people are more receptive, etc., etc. I don't always like the practice, but some do it. So next question.
Can laws of science and cosmics be modified, like to make Earth grow or shrink the sun, or create your own planets, or the sun be shapeshifted and things like that?
Yes, this was actually very interesting. I'll add to this when I read Orlog's response here. Orlog here again, Eddie, to say that yes, they can. An entire solar system can fit in a ship hold or even a pocket if the tech is refined enough. Take, for example, the movie Despicable Me, whereas Gru wanted to shrink the moon down. Then he did. But there is a time limit in which you can, just like in the movie. That is all for now on this subject. Next question. Now, I will add to this because, yeah, that does depict real disclosure there. And there was a time limit you saw where eventually the moon had to go back into orbit. There are a couple of things. There was a dream I had once where somebody did shrink the moon down, and they put the moon inside of a domed room with like essentially a telescope that had the slot open for the telescope. Brought it into this room. There's military guys split it open, rip it open, and there are all these insectoid beings that came out, and these little rock-looking guys. They put them all on towels on some stretchers, and no, this is actually interesting. Some of the insectoids died, unfortunately, and I don't know if they were good or bad ones. And the rock guys were kind of hanging on for dear life. that shows how big they actually were in comparison to the Earth. They're almost like a Titan derivative. But nothing happened to the Earth. There was no changing of the seasons or anything. All these guys were very cheerful and thankful that they had gotten rid of the moon. I have no context for this other than the fact that there's a trick out there that the moon is actually necessary for our survival. That would be the bad guys that more likely put that propaganda out there, even though it does change the seasons and the tides. The other one was a past life that I had of a pirate against the Galactic Federation, whereas I was able to take a TARDIS-like structure, shrink down a planet that they were just going to let die. People die, like you see in Star Trek, like the one where Worf's brother saves that species, and the Federation just expected him to let him die, because of the Prime Directive, and he didn't, and they had to find a new home for him. And one even committed suicide. So there was something. So there was a good thing with the Prime Directive not interfering, but at the same time there should be a middle ground, not let people die. My past life self thought the latter, where I moved this planet into orbit of another sun. The GF followed me around, but then once that planet was put somewhere, they wouldn't touch it based on their rules. And I knew once I got to the finish line there, they weren't going to touch it. What ended up happening was a docile species became a very violent one. So there is something to be said for non-interference in nature, and non-interference of a way a species is supposed to evolve. But there is a limit to this, like the travelers in Trek, where they sometimes will let a planet, a balanced planet with dark or light based upon how out of whack it is. With this, with their civilization or environment, like you see in Next Generation, where they stopped some volcanoes from erupting on a planet, but they still erased this young girl's memory that Data had befriended. So there is something to be said about not interfering with races that are less evolved. In some instances, there is some merit to this. Where with this planet, what had ended up happening, the sun that was there shined on them differently, and there was a slightly different gravity, just a touch, just enough to make them aggressive. So there was something to be said for non-interfering, that you fundamentally changed their evolution in some respect. There's pros and cons to this argument, and and Galactics will probably argue this till the cows come home or the last sun burns out. There are times to interfere, and there's times to not. Like the Watchers in Star Trek, they guide a species towards a particular evolution so they don't go to war with each other. The Prime Directive in Trek always says complete non-interference. J. Michael Straczynski of Babylon wrote Babylon 5. He had a different take, teach the younger races. Like if you're more evolved, you have a responsibility as a teacher or a caretaker. Had a completely different take than Roddenberry did. So that actually was a very, very good question. So next one.
Do things like candles and spiritual waters work? And are they connected to the ETs?
Yeah, all right. Yeah. Basically, do they use a lot of these things that we use down here? Yes, Eddie, we do use candles for spiritual concerns and meditation. Tech does not always lead the way forward, even though it can seem like progression at times. Oftentimes, it is not. However, there are times that it is. With meditation and other spiritual concerns, it is not. So I believe that was Orlog that actually said that. For whatever reason, I didn't put the name on some of these, but that I know is Orlog. So that said that. So, okay. Next question.
Can the ETs modify elements like water and air and fire and create things with them too? Like when Percy Jackson made the Sword of Water. And my other question regarding modifying the laws of science and space, I said that because I saw a cartoon where they turn this moon into a cookie or the sun into a light bulb, and another cartoon where they mix dangerous, hazardous, flammable chemicals and those don't explode.
This is actually very interesting. Granted, it's a cartoon. They bend physics constantly in those. This is actually it was a very interesting answer. This was Orlog again. He was on fire with this Q&A. So, yes, Eddie, we as well as others can modify the elements to work in our favor. Your corporations as well as Kabbalist families can and do often for not so good reasons. In short, weather control tech as well as psionic nurturing. Just like when the disclosure movement turned Hurricane Milton from a Category 5 into a Category 3 hurricane. The aquatic Draco do this as well and are quite annoying about it. The Myrmidon have done it for centuries in the form of sea storms, squalls, and giant mythological whirlpools. Next question. Now, I know there was the whole Sword of Water question in there. I'm not completely completely familiar with the Percy Jackson lore, but I know the concept of what you're talking about. The sword made from water. That's like the lightsaber in Star Wars being taking the Kyber crystal and forming the bent light or the solid light. There's also some spaceships have been known to use this, but you can also do this with water, where you could take literally a liquid and turn it into a razor's edge. Then you'd have something like the Halo's sword or a lightsaber made of water and fire. You can use any element and bend that with technology to make a weapon. It's just like in the biblical history, Enlil's facsimile had a flaming sword in the Garden of Eden. I believe that was an actual real weapon. You see this in like Elder Scrolls and a lot of the medieval fantasy type games where you have flaming swords and you have all this other stuff, not like, unlike in the game Dead Island, where you had to create all these things with just MacGyvering like mechanics together. I believe it's somewhere in the middle. So sufficiently advanced technology is nearly indistinguishable from magic, Arthur C. Clarke. So somebody was saying somewhere like, even though they were mocking kind of like the magical stuff with Dead Islands, MacGyverisms they had with just mechanics and wiring and all this other stuff, the weapons, and electrifying weapons with wires and car batteries and all that other stuff. This is still the same concept because it's the same science. So it's just no matter how advanced you are, you're still bound by the same sets of physics while you're in this particular timeline and this dimensional construct. Like when a species enters from another place to this one, they are bound by the rules of the reality they enter. Like in Farscape, this is a beautiful example. The dimensional being that took Crichton's father's form, and he comes into our dimension, looks like a Muppet, it was Jim Henson's company. So looks like a Muppet, then he shapeshifts into Crichton's father's form to make him more comfortable, like the whole Contact situation, Jodie Foster, or the pooping ice cream taco in South Park, that gag they pulled. But with this, it's the same thing, where he said he came Farscape said he came into our reality from a completely different form and came into our form. So these things do happen quite a bit, actually. So next question.
Other dimensions can project into ours to the point that we think they're a part of Earth, correct? Like in a movie I saw where some very far round planet connects with Earth for a temporal moment and people walk into it, and when it separates from Earth, they get trapped in there forever.
This was actually very good, and this has happened, actually, from what I understand. Okay. Yes, Eddie, this has happened a lot in the past, as well as in the now times, whereas a person can slip into another time frame or dimensional space, never to be seen or heard from anyone here again. Your Witcher 3 Game of the Year edition, Wild Hunt, showed this quite accurately with the conjunction of the spheres, whereas people got trapped on other worlds as well as creatures, and from other worlds getting trapped here. This was the reason for the Witchers in the series to begin with. Next question. Yes, this beautiful example, and they are basically in the Witcher lore, they are talking about a real historical event with the introverse worlds within worlds lining up. In the game, Geralt goes from world to world to world, and each one has its own series of almost wrecked nature. Essentially, when the conjunction of spheres happened, they got screwed up because the energy was so intense from them aligning. Creatures from all sides passed, and the original portals got screwed up. It's just like on Earth, you have the misalignment of the poles, where sometimes some ancient structures were built on what was originally true north. That's how you can tell how old the original foundations and the bones of the society, or the original society was, where then subsequent eras beyond built upon them. Like you have a megalithic, then you have Roman, and then you have medieval. And various little native cultures in between. With this, though, the most famous scene of all of them in that series was the Blood and Wine DLC. You heard me mention this before, where the vampire's hanging from the ceiling and near a broken portal with a big line through it. And you can see light coming through it. And Geralt asks the other vampire that's with him, goes, "Why does he hang there like a bat?" Pretty much. And he goes, because he can hear where we came from, and he can smell the smells where he can hear the sounds from where we came from, and he can smell the smells from where we came from, and he can see, hear, light, all of it, but you can never pass through the portal again. And it once was open. It might be again at some point, but it would have to be another conjunction or alignment of spheres, or a certain orbital alignment would have to be, which may never be again. This is also what was being referred to in that sequence, and this is also what was being referred to with the creatures passing both sides. Dimensionally, this does happen where timelines get close to each other and things jump. And then you have this, and that's a Mandela effect that happens. People go from one to the other. You may have slipped and never known it. You jump timelines and you never know it. So I find this actually quite interesting that this was brought up. So actually, we'll just move on to the next question here.
Did I see a Simpsons episode earlier where Bart and Lisa go inside the Itchy and Scratchy show, and then they come back out of the TV? And I saw another one where they throw a toy airplane into the TV and it becomes a real airplane. And I saw a movie where they turn toys into real things and vice versa. I'm assuming that those things are possible too.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Eddie, again, for the nice question. He supplied most of this show, just so you know, folks. So, yes, Eddie, just as discussed on The Forest People's Q&A episode, the one him and I spoke on, this is indeed possible with not only frequency swapping, but with portals attuned to those frequencies, even in fictional worlds. Next question. If you want to see more on that, there will be, and by the time you see this, there'll be an episode available on the World of Sasquatch's Rumble and on the YouTube temporarily, answering more in depth into this. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. Just know it was really gone into in depth in that particular episode. So next.
Why did the Galactics and Forest People always use pop culture references when Chris channels them? Seems a little odd to me.
Yeah. So this, I'm actually glad this was brought up. So yes, it is because I have them within my subconscious, and when I'm being channels, they search my thoughts to find, say, a movie, TV, or book reference to use to make their point. It also helps to make said point to those who would find it helpful and useful. Ragnar tends to call me Rain Man for this reason alone, since I hold things in my head a lot for reference purposes. I don't really recommend it, but it works in a pinch to remember facts and figures. Monks do this when they're doing their mantras. You see Tibetan monks go into this, and then they try to make the mind go through certain mantras and certain, like if we ran the law of one through our head and all this other stuff, we could actually attain a certain, almost like a thoughtless stage to where the ego tends to be just kind of drift, and negative thoughts tend to drift. It's a good way to get rid of negative narratives and such, but this is what I was referring to here. I have it in my subconscious, therefore they use it. Brian from the conference was asking us this very thing as well. And so they use it because also in channel, you're hearing both of our voices. That's why sometimes you hear accents switch back and forth. I will not go 100%. So I will add on this one bit that people were also curious about with this. And now this is why if I'm channeling and you're asking some personal question like what's in my pocket, or where did I leave my keys, or is this validation for this? Now validation flows to the next thing, and I don't know I'm being tested or questioned about in that nature. The energies flow. If someone is asking me while a being is channeling, my brain will automatically try to, like with the pop culture thing, start to search for the answer, and it's not organic, and sometimes it doesn't work well, and the being can end up dislodging because it takes more than just brain. It is constant flow of energy. So if anybody out there wants to test certain aspects during that, please do not do that. It tends to interfere with the channel itself. The validation will come as it comes. Just like I always say this to the paranormal community, it's not about proof, it's about communication. I say this to Sasquatch research groups as well. When the forest people are ready, you will get your proof, rest assured. And so, next.
What is the truth about the concept of the 144,000?
Yeah, this one, people are not going to like this. This answer, I'm giving the short annotated version of this here. So this is more of a tale of Ebens genetically incorporating their very own DNA from subsequent generations, the generation to generation, all the while creating the prophecies of the indigo children, golden children, crystal children, and rainbow children. The Hopi had the legend of the rainbow children, whereas these rainbow children would save the world from evil tyranny and wake the world up. Sound familiar, anyone? For more information on this subject, just subscribe to our website, galacticinterversalconsortium.com or gic.show, and watch the video on the 144,000 and the Eben agenda. I can't reinvent the wheel completely here, folks, but just know there was a lot of detail in that episode, and you're gonna probably resonate with this, or you're gonna hate our guts. One of those two. So we can go on the next one.
Did the Roswell, New Mexico crash actually happen?
Yes, it did indeed happen, but there is a twist. It was New Schwabenlanders, Nazis attempting to leave the planet. They eventually had to create NASA as a front to do so later, but they had help crossing the firmament. The story of EBE-1 did not happen. If you want to know more on this subject, please subscribe to our sister website at galacticinterversalconsortium.com or gic.show. Look for the episode entitled GIC, Mars, Phobos, and Deimos Monoliths, the Nachtwaffen, and the AI God. So this I will give a little bit to Roswell. At Roswell, they were trying to leave the planet. The ship got shredded. One of their Bellcraft, the Nazi Bellcrafts, got shredded because they didn't do the anchoring through the firmament correctly to get to Mars or to get to the moon or Ceres yet. And it shredded across the New Mexican desert, and that's when Mac Brazel, the rancher, found craft. The beings inside were just clone beings that the Nazis did experiments on via what they learned in World War II with the Jewish people. So that's in a nutshell right there. And it wasn't grays they found, that is propaganda. The EBE-1 story is propaganda. There are Ebens, but that was not one of the tales involving them. So that's all I'll go into at this point. But I will say, though, the person that wanted to come through today, he came through in a session, or with two people came in today's session earlier from the time of this recording. And I was not really expecting, Carl Weathers or George Foreman. He was the other one. And it was boxing references that were coming up. When I woke up, I felt like I was talking to Sylvester Stallone the day that Carl Weathers passed away. Because they were good friends. Apollo Creed is where Carl Weathers played in Rocky, and of course Sylvester Stallone was Rocky. So what ended up happening was, like, I was seeing in my head, him and one other guy, clinking drinks, honoring Carl Weathers, things of that nature. And I was like, okay, why am I seeing Sylvester Stallone? And why am I standing next to somebody watching them clink drinks and watching them honoring Carl and then drinking? It's because Carl was standing there watching the two of them do that. I was seeing where he was actually standing at the time these things happened. Seeing his funeral, I was seeing him stand near other people, family members, things of that nature. And I found this very interesting because normally I have to pass someone on as a ghost. With this, he was not a ghost. Him nor George Foreman were ghosts. These were spirit, same way that Frank Frazetta came through, all of them. And after I moved Elvis on, he was, of course, spirit. Houdini, same thing. But Carl Weathers and George Foreman, they automatically went. So I just found that very, very, very fascinating. And I woke up this morning and it was a very strong feeling from Carl Weathers. I mean, it was overwhelmingly powerful. And it came through with like a warrior type energy, but more of a kind of like a creation, co-creative energy that came through. This big oversoul was coming through. And I couldn't explain why he chose me to actually talk about this. And I didn't think it was this frequent that celebrities such as himself do go from person to person from time to time. And I didn't think I was part of that book, let's just say. So I know he wanted to say a couple of things at the end of this Q&A. Yeah. And I may also add some videos or a couple of videos I did with this Q&A about the whole Val Kilmer thing being Mandela effect. Yeah, I firmly believe this was a Mandela effect with him. We remembered we remembered he died when Top Gun Maverick was being filmed. They honored him as the Iceman in that because they were honoring Val Kilmer. Some people, family members, claimed, when the Mandela effect happened, when this timeline switch, that the internet claims that he did that just to basically say he was never coming back as Iceman. No, we saw the memorial, the date of birth and death at the end of the movie. We even saw news reports talking about Val Kilmer. Right on April 1st, of this year, 2025, he passes away. And now they're talking about the news reports again, like they did before. So people are saying, oh, people are just forgetting. I could see little things and also logos changing for businesses and brands and stuff changing. There is no doubt what took place with Val Kilmer.
Well, in our opinion.
In our opinion.
Because again, most of the time these timeline shifts happen seamlessly.
This was not a seamless, this was like a copy paste,
Yeah, but with some people remembering something different, which is what the Mandela effect is. So I don't really know how many people feel that it happened during the making of that movie like we do. Maybe not that many, but that was my first thing when I saw it. I was like, is this a joke or something? Because we definitely.
We thought it was a joke because it was they said he died on April Fool's. I'm like, that's not a very nice April Fool's gag, But
right, but I was waiting to find the joke. I was waiting to say, no, this isn't a Mandela effect. Haha, it's just a joke. But, because we remember something completely different occurring.
And others would not, because if they were on the timeline by which he did die on April 1st, 2025. So, that.
Right.
So that, yeah.
So the Mandela effect isn't usually something that people remember because it's so many people who remember different. But there's enough that it's like, whoa, this is not what I remember.
Yeah.
But so anyway, I just kind of put that out there because I don't know how many people feel it happened at another time, but we do.
Yeah. If you have a different opinion or a different viewpoint, or you agree with us, doesn't matter. Let us hear that in the comments, because if people think something happened with Val Kilmer, please let us know. And at some point, hopefully in spirit, he could come in himself to talk about this. So, but today is about Carl Weathers. So he went, damn right. All right. Nice guy. He's very witty, and he could go toe to toe with Isaac. So it was like, and in the session, he was in his boxing trunks, and everything. Him and George Foreman were, and it was because we were getting rid of some bad guys. He looks like he did in Rocky as Apollo Creed, that he's young looking again. So I believe he was in his 70s when he passed away. So all right. Yeah, I wouldn't channel him if I didn't trust his energy. So true benevolent Carl. This is interesting. I was actually looking forward to this. George, on the other hand, is not. He thinks it's kind of creepy. Earlier, Chris here thought George was standoffish of him. No, he was not really looking forward to from the other end of the looking glass kind of speak. I was actually more curious than anything else. I've spoken to others, but I have not actually done this. You guys are the first, not to stroke the ego. That is not my purpose. What I do wish to say is this. In what you would perceive as afterlife, there are multiple things that he is perceiving. Yes, I am in a gym type of setting, but I also that is part of my library. He's seeing what I went through with the training for Rocky, along with Sylvester Stallone, who is a very good friend and dear friend, and so is the Oversoul. We're dear friends for a very long time. What happens is in this part of the library, he is seeing me in shifting into a room where I stood as a spirit next to Sylvester Stallone and another friend who I will keep nameless at this time. They were drinking the moment, to myself, the moment they found out that I had passed. And I transitioned quite quickly. Even though I had heart issues leading up to my passing, I transitioned quickly. I stood there essentially as a ghost two spirit in between and then moved on. Now, where I am, where I'm standing, is that very bar. It was very heartfelt to see that from that end, and I must say, slightly weird. Some would say creepy. George would think it was creepy. So nothing personal against yourselves. It's just not his cup of tea. So he was kind of taking it personal a little bit because he was standoffish. It's like, no, it's just not George's cup of tea. The fight and boxing and selling crap was his cup of tea. And I don't say crap, I just mean in an endearing way. But in this way, I will say that on this side, I am more of a kind of a warrior-esque type of energy, like almost like an Asgardian form, but not necessarily that. One of my expressions was more forest people at one point, in this particular way. But at this point in time, aside from any slight racial remarks from your Isaac over there, as far as being apish, and I was a black man in life, Isaac, but no insult intended. He is about as white as they come, for one. And two, he's a big white boy with red hair. And we've known each other as well. So there. I can dish it out too. Aside in the session from all the watermelon chicken and grape drink marks from him, I will say he is the whitest person I've ever met. So, and then I say that in attitude and skin. If you saw him, basically, if he were to walk onto a beach, it would be the same as an Irishman walking onto a beach, and that's like a fork in the microwave. So his son and him do not mix. Let's just put it that way. I have tone and patina. Let's just put it that way. So a little racial joke there, folks. In the spirit world, I try to bring across from there to Earth a not necessarily guardian, that isn't the wrong choice of word. It's more like how to coach in not only self-reliance, but at the same time, it's more like weaving those type of creation energies in that way. Not, I know everything is one, but at the same time, there are avatars and the oversouls that need to branch out and come up with their own path as how to walk. If this makes sense, your Frank Frazetta came into for the artistic industry. Your Jeffrey Hunter came in the acting area. I came in acting. I came in athletic, and I want to the energies I came in to present were co-creative in that area. Not only acting my passion and co-creating that way, but fitness and also that of bringing that energy through others. You would see that as like in your ancient history as like a god of like a hunter or a god of or goddess of a like some kind of nature type of being. In one of my expressions, I was a forest person. So with that said, I bring that through also being in tune with nature, because I cared for nature, earth causes, as well as physical fitness and acting. Some people thought I was on the wrong side of the political fence. I don't I don't see things like that. When your Jimmy Carter came through, yeah, in life he when he went into spirit, he saw there was some decisions he made here that weren't exactly kosher with some, but he thought they were meant for a greater purpose. I was kind of a similar way, but also I came into both further uh, a particular energy as creating physical balance, but as well as blending with nature and also acting, as well as having fun with that acting. Like your Frank Frazetta did, he took pictures of himself, he did little films, he did his art. It was the same for me. I came into further those combinations of energies and make it evolve further in that area where eventually at some point it will become separate from your cliquish and very dark Hollywood tendencies. Let's just put it that way. I myself did not partake in any of that. Neither did Sylvester. So I must say this. So neither did George. So I can go into questions.
Well, I think it's okay to say that you had a lane that you stayed in. That's what we say all the time, stay in your lane. And not everybody,
Didn't care for politics. Didn't care for anything.
not a lot of people really do. I think right now people are beginning to pay a little bit more attention to it because they're wanting to put more energies into manifesting something better for humanity, and you can't ignore all of politics if you're doing that. Like I always say, whatever's coming across the TV screen, half of it you should be saying no to that you don't agree.
Mhm.
But so I think that's perfectly fine to say it really wasn't, the lane, it wasn't what your energies were here to do. And so it's nice to hear that you kind of did stay in the lane that you wanted to at that time. So, but I do find it interesting when someone like yourself kind of finds Chris. I always want to ask, out of the quadrillion of souls, let's just say, and avatars and whatever, how in the world did you decide to actually even come to Chris and even want to do any of this today?
That's a very interesting, fascinating question. It's actually more attuned to the frequency by which he emanates and or the need for. What did I say before? What I felt my purpose in life and afterlife was physical fitness and self-reliance, and also caring for the passions of the arts, the passions of athletics, the passions of all these things. There are times where both of you have been, struggling with certain health and weight issues. The spirit enlisted me to step forward in that way because in ancient times I also did these things as well in the Greek Olympian times and all these other areas as well as in the Asgardian times. Also, as a forest person, they're kind of the epitome of in shape because they're outside all the time, as well as being more the self-reliant in the respect because you are trying to forward more of not only the information and get rid of the blockages, but you are attempting to gain a certain, I don't want to say just financial standing, but it's an energetic status as well. Not necessarily status as far as high culture goes. That's not what I mean. It is more or less to be on stable footing. This spirit actually threw me that direction for that of your direction for this, but at the same time, I also saw, which I can say no as well, but I also saw the means not only talk this way, but also a means of actually opening the door to more benevolent voices that could come into your lives, if this helps.
No, I find it interesting because, I just keep, all these people that find their way here. It just always amazes me every single time because I'm like, how in the world did you ever hear of us, of him? You know what I mean? And I know that I'm assuming, I guess I should say I'm assuming that when, you do cross, the threshold and go back, you know a lot more beings
Yeah.
than you think you know. You know
Yes,
what I mean?
your amnesia disappears. Yeah,
Right, and so you know so many more. And
like
again,
waking up from a dream. Actually, yeah.
well, and I have to say has to do with more than just us, because the goal is other people will be hearing this as well. And so I'm going to call it coaching, because I don't know what it's a simple
Coaching,
word.
yes,
I
yes.
think coaching is a good, because you mentioned coaching, but you also mentioned the importance of balance. And so, coaching and balance, because again, to inspire anyone, whomever's currently in their avatar form, to be able to hit them with a certain frequency, a resonance that they, find inspiration through your words. Of course, that's always welcome and what we like to see happen. So I am going to then just specifically ask you, in the world as you see it now, from your perspective, what type of coaching, what types of words, what type of information do you want to come through that you feel will help everyone?
Always, of course, it's very kind of you to want this. Well, we all of you should live in balance. Do not always, how can I put this? Glue yourselves to the TV set, or even have certain things running in the background. Don't have these things rule your existence. I may not have always made some of the greatest life choices myself as on the Avatar as the facet everybody knows is Carl Weathers, but I am saying for all of you here, live in balance, but don't hold your true selves back, no matter what that version of yourself looks like, or is, or identifies as. Make sure you're not being tricked as well. In life, don't fall for tricks. I know I fell for plenty, but but the friendships you forge, keep them. Don't squabble over petty little things. If you have to separate from people, do so. You call it the splitting of the densities. If you have to walk away from situations because they're too harsh, do so. Do not judge others for having to do so because you want to stand your ground in a situation. Don't fall into like a self-flagellation either. If it starts to go into that, you're out of balance. Do not go into out of balance states. Those that are your best buds will remain your best buds. The ones that are there thick and thin. Sylvester and I were that way. So I must say, you would call it tighter circle, deeper roots. So this is exactly where I am personally at with this. Balance in all things. Of course, people like to say, I'm calm always or calm always. I say balance always.
Which is nice. And I do believe,
And the calm is part of that.
do you
So.
believe that in your life you also tried to model that here when in your avatar lifetime here, you tried to model that?
Tried, yes. At times, not so much. You know how life gets. But yes, I knew inside that this is the way. You get it. So yes, that I actually enjoyed that show very much too. The Mandalorian. Liked a lot of these things. Didn't care about any of the political strife along with it. I just did it because I enjoyed it. I mean, the money didn't hurt either. I'm just saying I enjoyed nearly every single thing I was a part of. Rocky, wonderful time in my existence in life. Mandalorian was a good send off from here. So yes, this is the point. Do you have any other questions for myself?
Really, I'm more just curious again about your lifetime when you were here, when you talk about, doing your best to maintain balance, because I personally don't know much about your personal life when you were here. So I just ask you, about your personal life, relationships, family, children, things like that.
Yeah.
How did you do with those types of relationships in your life and the concept of a balance within it all? How did you do with your personal life?
I got into certain little squabbles from time to time, stupid arguments like some people have done in the past, and I learned as I went along with both family relationships and had a few of those as well, where I learned from as I went along. I won't bore people with that, but I will say any of these fights that you get into with, say a spouse or a parent figure or a sibling or a friend, it's not really worth it anymore. Earlier in my life, when I was in my 20s, people think they know everything, and that's a common cliche type of stance. But I would be like more the poster child from earlier life for that. I didn't come up from the greatest upbringing, but at the same time, later on in life, I took that, and some people always say, well, hard work is the know all and be all. That's not necessarily true. It's, and some say it's luck. That's not always necessarily true either. It is more or less what you become as a result of the circumstances you run into. You cannot blame circumstance. You cannot blame ancestry. You cannot blame white or black. It is what you become that, as a result of circumstance, that defines your role and your frequency. I can end on this.
So I do find it difficult. So I understand everything you're saying about being difficult, with families and different ones close to you, to find that balance of being respectful to their life choices and their decisions and the way they want things to be, to find that true balance. And then again, as we've said before on the show, it's not our job to push our own personal will onto somebody else.
Yes.
And I think obviously in families, this is where it shows the most, because you may feel that, if they would only listen to you or only do things the way you would, their life would be easier, but you don't know really what their life is supposed to be all about.
You don't know why that soul is here. You don't know why that group of people is here. You don't always know why you're here. I didn't know why I was here completely. I just knew what I loved to do. You cannot rule over someone else's domain. And I saw that in Hollywood multiple times. Ego upon ego. And I learned over my life that it's not worth that. Like in any respect, and judgment against people is not ever acceptable in any respect. There are few, I suppose, exceptions if somebody is really doing an evil act of some kind. Oh, of course, you're going to have a judgment call in there, and also an expectation to act on something that is negative to get rid of it. But beyond that, everything else is egotism and narcissism in that particular way, or what you would call egotism and narcissism. To lord over someone is never acceptable. They came in their lane, you are within your own. If the lanes happen to converge for a little while and that person is supposed to walk that lane with you, so be it.
And then, the other area that I can just say for me personally is that you may need to split ways when being in someone else's energy, being with them. You're starting not to be yourself anymore.
Yes.
You're becoming something else.
You're becoming something other than what you came in to be. You're off your lane at that point.
And so those are times when really it may be time to truly part ways, so you don't get lost yourself within it. And you just start to become very negative, very resentful, very mean, very mad, because you're changing, and you may not even recognize that, but those are some of the, let's just say, signs and symptoms that maybe there's a clash with even within yourself and what you're doing. So, you should never ignore that. And those would be very legitimate reasons why you need to part. And again, wish the other person well, whatever, but you just can't be in the same sandbox playing anymore. You've got to go on your own way.
Yes.
So I find that interesting now. The reason that I wanted to know your perspective is because one of the areas that we have been talking a lot about, that we believe an experience that's coming for humanity, is to basically to kind of learn how to get along. That basically, again, how do you, it's like, I'm sure in other times in human history, there's been really bad times. Right now, from the time when I was younger than to right now, I see how it's almost like you either agree with me fully or I hate you. You know what I mean? That finding a middle ground, finding some sort of unity of things you agree on and letting that be the foundation and being able to kind of get along. Like, I don't know where that went, but it's like we have to find our way back to kind of a balance like that.
People have to find their way back to themselves is what must happen. What has happened is they've been taken so far off the center point. And yes, there is a ton of oppression going on. This can be seen by spirit. But during all of this, yes, there is creepy thoughts. Yes, there's the V2K. There's all the satanic garbage with Hollywood. There is all of these creepy things going on in the background. There's also struggling disclosure, all this other things, narratives, all of these. But these values circle you back around to center. He saw this in a video game once where he took the bad ending to it, where he took the selfish ending. In his Cyberpunk 2077, he took the selfish ending. And the explanation that Johnny Silverhand or Keanu Reeves is giving is absolutely 100% true. Where it said, your value comes back around. Always back to center. No matter what happens in your life, that comes back around and keeps you balanced and sane. That is your soul speaking. Anything outside of that value is outside of your lane.
Okay. Well, thank you. Well, I'm just going to give you this time to say any last words that you'd like to say. Again, it's been thrilling that you decided to come in and speak. I know that Chris this morning was just beside himself. He couldn't believe that you were coming in and making yourself known to him. And he did say that he felt your energies cleared some things off this property. So I thank you for that as well.
Yes.
But any last words?
Yeah. So I can't take all the credit. George did some of it as well. One could call him more of a spirit introvert in that way. And yeah, I know you're more extroverted. You were in life, you were on TV, you were everywhere. But as far as channeling goes in this other world, it's not his deal. So it's not his gig, let's just say. So one could be one way here and one way there. There's nothing wrong with this. It's because his path demanded that he be a particular way here and there. Mine as well. I am slightly more co-synchronous in that particular way. But to end on this high point, remember that value system. Remember where you came from originally. But if it's something negative that you came from, do not go back to it. If it is something dark that you are being shoved towards, don't go towards it. Stay in balance. Some would say go to the light, but that's the more cliche again, or stay in the light. That's more cliche. That's more afterlife based, and so he calls soul trap based. But stay in balance always. You don't know what path that other person is walking. So some say walk in their shoes, but again, me as the actor is being very cliche at the moment. So I'll end this with balance always. Thank you. Okay, I found that very interesting. He's very kind energy, very, I could feel like the muscle bulk. I don't have the greatest muscle structure in the world, and he goes, I hadn't noticed. Okay, so thank you. And you too, Isaac and George. I can see both of you actually, and forest people as well, where I could feel the muscle bulk. Like when the forest people come in, I can feel their height and muscle bulk and large feet, legs, arms, all of it. But with him, it's the same way. He was in good shape. So him and Sylvester Stallone really is in good shape. So he said, he goes, me more so, but that's me poking fun at him. So, so I found that very, very, very interesting. So I'm going to go into this last affirmation and blessing before we close the circle here. We thank Carl Weathers and George Foreman for being here today, along with all the other helpers as well. Yes, and you too, Isaac. Okay. Now, the affirmation blessing. To the life of poverty, I say no more. To the fight, I say live it up. To love, I say embrace it. Channel of athlete, boxer, and salesman, George Foreman. Mm-hmm. So That was around 12:30 p.m. today. And so that one came in at that time. So, Joanna, I don't know if you have anything else to add to this?
Nope, I hope everyone found this interesting.
Yes, as interesting as we did. So at this point in time, I see them leaving. Thank you. Thank you. Very kind souls, I would recommend speaking to them, the true benevolent versions, that is. So at this point in time, I now close this circle within true benevolence and no conflicting agendas of this moment in time. So thank you, everybody. Bye-bye now.